Now, of course, though, since we are weather creators rather than just weather reporters, we're not just concerned about how big or small it is. We're concerned about, so how do we jet ourselves over the thing and get enough traction on the other side in order to grow the product and eventually live a long life into maturity. So the question becomes, how do we cross the chasm? A starting point is, to understand, why it is that products fall into the chasm, why it is that they fail to make it out of the early stages into the growth phases. And overly simplifying, but in a way that captures a large part of the effect, what Moore did is reduce it to essentially two factors. And they largely were related to product, and said that many new products are, in his terminology, are immature products, or sometimes he would refer to whole products, and an early product that fails would be a non-whole product. And what that says is, and think about this as early versions, as version 1.0 of just about any software you ever get or any new product, what you know is there's going to be stuff that goes a little haywire. That all the functionality isn't there. The stuff hiccups a little bit. You may have to do some sort of technology workarounds. You may have to get in and solder some pieces yourself to make it all work. That may turn on a technologist. Again, think about that top part of that one chart. So people who get a technology high, I think they view that as part of the benefit. If they've got to, in fact, recobble some of the stuff or rewrite some of the software, they don't think that's a negative. I think they think that's really good. So they feel good about it. Most people, mortals like us, we don't want to get in and rewire our iPhone in order to make it work, I don't think, right? All right, so his first is that a lot of early versions are incomplete, are not whole, are immature, meaning that they may not work fully to the functionality that you would expect, or there's just got to be a lot of workarounds built around the periphery of it in order to fit it into your work scheme. That's point number one. A second takes it a step further. He says that even for those who may be relatively complete, relatively whole products, there is, in the terminology, no killer application. Killer application, a simple definition is, it is a basic functionality and benefit delivered by a product that unto itself alone, just it, justifies the purchase of the product such that anything else that comes along with it is just frosting on the cake, is just gravy. So it is the reason that people say, I can't live without this. I will buy this product on this basis, and it's also nice that it comes along with a bunch of other accoutrements. And for example, the Detroit old stories are that spreadsheets, were the killer application for PCs, because it gave people the opportunity to move numbers around and add and subtract and give the finance people a way to push buttons and rejiggle all the financial statements. It's commonly thought that email was the killer app for the internet. That while Googling and looking stuff up was interesting, what really got people engaged was the ability to be able to communicate instantaneously on a non-telephone basis. So, email gets credit for it. My favorite killer app is the NFL Sunday Ticket on DirecTV. Well, why? Because I think everybody can relate to this, I'm sure, because everyone thinks that if you're living out of market of your favorite football team in professional football, you can't see a lot of their games just on the network. So the only way you can get it is by having DirecTV, which has the exclusive rights to broadcast in real time every single football game around the country. So with NFL Sunday Ticket, why did I get DirecTV? Because it's got the best movies or the best channel? No. In fact, why do you get it then? Well, you get it because it had, in my case, it had the killer application. I could get the Bears. And in fact, as the history of DirecTV traces out, they were doing okay until they signed the contract with the NFL, and that's when they had a real spurt. All right, so the second notion is, that if you don't have one, so this is not a 1 minus, if you don't have a killer app, that's not good. If you don't have a killer app and you're also an incomplete product, that means you're almost virtually certain to fall into the chasm. Now, what all that really reduces to, basic intuitive notion that says most of them fall into the chasm on account of because there's no compelling reason to buy it whatsoever. Okay, that makes an awful lot of sense. Well, more importantly, is the question of, okay, that, looking observationally, that's why something falls into the chasm. How do you jet yourself over the chasm? Well, it boils down into essentially two dimensions. They're listed as four things up there. One dimension is product, and one dimension is target marketing. The first on the product is fix the negatives that I just talked about. So make sure that you are ready for prime time, that you are at least close enough in terms of the functionality of the product that people who are mere mortals, who are beyond the technologists, can drop it in and stand a relatively good chance of using it while completely revamping the way they live or they operate. The second is, if to the extent possible, develop for yourself and introduce for yourself, launch for yourself, a compelling application. A killer app if you can, and it's easier to say, well, let's have a killer app, than it is to figure out what one is and execute it. If not a killer app, at least have for yourself a wounding app or something that can cause harm app out in the marketplace, rather than just a bunch of ordinary apps that have no compelling value in themselves. So in terms of product, you want it to be complete, you want a whole product, and you want the proposition to be as compelling as possible, with the dream being killer application. Now, on the market side of it, this is a fairly big deal, and it is, rather than attempting to be kind of all things to all people simultaneously, identify vertical market niches. So the first notion is it's a niche, into the marketplace, and vertical just means you're taking a slice out of the market and you're trying to really, really own that slice of it. Find a vertical niche that has certain characteristics that make it more attractive than others, and make sure that you focus on it, you attack it, and you own that market niche. Now, what makes a good market niche? What would sort something up high on the list of vertical niches you'd go after? This is important. Okay, what makes a good vertical niche? Well, vertical niche, a couple of things. One, the folks, the customers, potential customers in that niche have a compelling problem that needs to be fixed. So they have a job that needs to be done that is substantial, at least as they perceive it. Second, that they've got at least some degree of risk tolerance, knowing that when you do stuff early rather than late, when you're an innovator rather than an imitator, there's some risk that it's going to turn out bad. That the stuff doesn't work as you expected it, that there are going to be bugs in it, a little tough. So you need a vertical niche then. They've got a compelling job to be done, and they've got to have some risk tolerance. Third, deep pockets, so that they're willing to buy, and not only are they willing to buy, they're willing to buy at relatively high prices, since stuff early on tends to be priced up high. Okay, so we got the three characteristics, and fourth is that they have got some referential power. And what that means is that if you hook them, that somehow you are able to use their credibility to allow the word to spread to other sorts of groups, so that they are, movers and shakers that people listen to. Now think about it, for example, industry leaders who, if they adopt the technology, everybody in their particular industry is going to adopt it because they're always watching. Like Walmart, they has high referential power. If they do anything, if they start, if Walmart takes a product, then there's a high chance that a lot of other places are going to take a product onto their shelves also. So high referenceability. So you want the product that's complete, compelling application, and you want to go after vertical niches, not a whole bunch of places. You don't want to be all over the place. Pick the ones that have got the greatest opportunity. Pick the ones with a great need, risk tolerance, deep pockets, and it's got the credibility that if they do it, other people are going to fall in line. In the reading you'll do, and eventually I'll get back to this, there is a metaphor he uses called the bowling alley. It essentially says your first vertical niche should be the head pin, and designed in a way that if your head pin tumbles, that it knocks the other pins over. So it is the one that's absolutely crucial. If you don't hit it, you probably don't get the sort of diffusion, the sort of action with the other pins. Once you do get it, if you get it right and you get it hard, it's going to knock over other pins, first the ones more adjacent and the ones further away.